Hello, Gary. I wanted to show you, there's two types of 5200 bottoms that can be done on a Century. On a Chris Craft, when we do a 5200 bottom on a Chris Craft, it does not have these battens. The Chris Craft does not. It has just frame, just ribs. And the ribs are actually farther apart than they are on a Century. So the Century put more ribs in, and they had a single layer bottom with a batten between the seams. Or where the plank laid on the batten, and your next plank came in adjacent to that, and so you had this batten that covered the seam and helped make it more waterproof. So so we could take the existing planks off the bottom of yours, and we could fix all the battens and fix all the frames, and then put the planks back on that are still usable and glue them to the battens. And that's what I call a Poman 5200 bottom, because that is a little less expensive than the other alternative. With Chris Craft, because we don't have the battens, they built their bottoms with two layers. They call them double planked. Well, and they were initially, they were a very light plank, in the early years. And then later on, they started using plank over plywood. So they'd have a plywood layer on the bottom, and then they would put the planks on top of the plywood layer. And the planks may or may not line up. Oh, and they had no battens. So the planks were fastened at the frames, all right? So we have two choices on a bottom, on a 5200 bottom for a Century. We have better and more better, or a good and best. So two methods. Again, we can just glue the plank with 5200 to the battens, and the screws end up being the clamps that hold the plank in place while the 5200 sets. Or we can go ahead and put a layer of plywood on over the battens. We don't eliminate the battens. We would put a layer of plywood on over the battens. That's your first waterproof layer, and then you have your every plank is bedded in a continuous layer with no gaps, no voids of 3M 5200 between layers. So that's the two methods. As we look at the bottom of your boat, that's the two methods that we can use to rebuild the bottom of your boat. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about your boat on the next video.